Welcome back to the NFL Pick 6 show for the first time ever. Week 18, aka it's the information slate. It's your boys, usual suspects here. Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis, John Daigle, NBC Sports, a good football show podcast. Hey, all right. I was going to say we made it, John, but we haven't officially made it. It's still week 18. You know, we're coming down the final stretch, and we just talked about this pre-show just so the people know. There's no reason to like unsubscribe because we're doing, not that you wouldn't dare, but if you're even considering unsubscribing, we're going to do 2 playoff shows as well. So the first 2 weeks of the playoffs are we're doing shows. So stay tuned for that. But John, we kind of made it. Sure, we can take the victory lap. Why not? Week 18, we're here. We're excited in theory.
We are excited. It feels like week 18, certainly. I don't know who wanted this. Nonetheless, we are here. Of course, everyone wanted this show. I don't know who wanted week 18 football.
I know who did.
Well, there are 32 people.
32 guys.
Yeah, 32 at the top. Nonetheless, it's the same thing we always talk about in week 17 in previous years where there's some motivation to be had, even though right now it doesn't look like many teams are hidden. We kind of know who's going to bench their players or like play at least a quarter. We'll talk about that as the show goes along. But nonetheless, it's interesting. Yes, we're here. It's week 18.
Yeah, Rich, it's worth talking about. Any overarching thoughts? You know, again, I talk about the information slate and a lot of the information we don't have just yet. We're going to do our best on a Wednesday night, kind of figure it out and do our best guesses. And I think what John was doing was kind of sort of hinting at the possibility of like an Aaron Rodgers, maybe playing a quarter, maybe playing a half, maybe not playing at all. You're going to have to like pry that football out of his cold, dead hands, though. You know, he's going to want to play as much as possible and lock up that MVP. But and, you know, there's some other teams that are just kind of playing out the strings. Some other teams that just, they're probably going to rest some dudes. Cincinnati, looks like Joe Burrow is not going to go. Most likely Joe Mixon as well. General thoughts here. What do we have, Rich, as far as, you know, it's not a full slate because 2 games are on Saturday, 1 game's on Sunday night. So it's a 13-gamer. Not incredibly overwhelming, but what are we looking at here? A lot of low totals, not a lot of high-scoring games.
It has like a mix of big like final preseason week energy, you know, kind of mixed in here a little bit. But imagine leaving the final slate on the table where you can chase the first Cole Kmet touchdown of the year, or the last chance we have to play Kyle Pitts potentially if he's able to play. These things that are still left on the table for us to pursue one last time. It's the last main slate of the season, and weird things happen every week. So why not dial in one last time?
Kyle Pitts was one of those guys. He's actually on the board. I did pull up, was it Anthony Amico? He tweeted out a bunch of incentive stuff, which is always kind of sort of worth noting. I did my own research as far as incentive, and I also went ahead and read Levitan's article on it. Very, very helpful this time of year. But Kyle Pitts needs 59 receiving yards for a single season rookie tight end record. But like you said, on a Wednesday, he didn't practice. Atlanta doesn't really care. Like they're not going anywhere, obviously, and it's one of their prized pieces going forward. Who knows? We'll see. But if he does play, in theory, they're going to want to get him those 59 yards. Some other incentives that are kind of worth talking about.
They're also limiting Cordero Patterson. I don't know what they're limiting him for since there are no more games, but yeah, there's a lot going on in Atlanta right now.
And he's a free agent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, they want to make sure somebody spends a lot of money for him in the offseason. That's nice of them.
They're trying to keep the price down to rebuy in.
Is that, you know, that's pretty sharp if that's actually what they're doing, but who knows how it's going to go down.
I'm not giving that organization any credit.
No, it's probably the sharp call for sure. Yeah, we'll keep our eye on like incentives and like narratives and playoff implications and all that throughout the show. Of course, I mean, listen, your first time
chasing incentives can never go wrong. It's not like we just chased a bunch of incentives from a player that quit in the middle of a game last week.
Oh God. Yeah, you know, well, the other part is like a lot of these dudes are rich already. Like, you know, it's nice I'm sure it's nice to get like a $200,000 bonus or, you know, $1 million bonus, whatever it is, but $1 million to them, probably not $1 million to us, like you're relatively speaking, but yeah, they're certainly nice as well. Of course, Cooper Kupp potentially going to break the single season, you know, record as far as yards, potentially going over 2,000 yards, all this stuff. I think Kupp needs 12 receptions to break the single season record as far as receptions. Steph Diggs, I think it's 6 catches he needs to get what is like $500,000 or something like that. That seems doable. And of course, Buffalo is one of those teams that actually has some incentive in this slate as well. The Bills, the Titans, the Colts, the Saints, San Francisco, the Rams. So we have some teams that are fully incentivized. this is your first time listening to the show, where have y'all been all season long? Welcome. Sure.
You picked the
But
wrong
where-
week.
This is not the one that's going to go like, this is not going on our reel. Like, we're not mailing this one out and saying this is the best show. We'll try. We're going to do our best for sure. But yeah, week 18, welcome aboard. We focus on three main games. We break it down from all possible angles and kind of run it back and give our favorite plays from players at each position that are not in those three main games. Whew, John, yeah, you probably struggled picking our three featured games this week. It's kind of sort of somewhat ugly, but the first one we're going to start with, of course, is San Francisco and the Rams. 44.5 is the total, the second highest total on the board last I checked. A couple I think might be tied with it. The good thing here, at least, John, is that we have two teams that are fully motivated. They both want to win. I think San Fran's got to win to get in, and the Rams need to win to kind of jockey for position, possibly maybe a bye. Either way, they're both motivated. We like that. And Cooper Kupp, the aforementioned Cooper Kupp, we like him, right? What's to say about Cooper Kupp in week 18? Do we think he's a good play this week?
Yeah, for the Rams, we know that even though there's one bye, that's it this year. Teams are still jockeying for the number 2 seed and home field advantage in the playoffs, especially like in this first round. If you're not getting a bye, you still, of course, want to host whoever the 7 seed is. So that's what teams are still playing for, including the Rams. For Stafford, it's also been 3 games in a row now that he's performed fairly poor, averaging 250 yards, just 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in that span. But we've seen, even in that stretch, Cooper Kupp still flourish as an inevitable production player with 130 yards and 2 touchdowns 3 weeks ago, 10 for 109 a couple weeks back. And then even last week, that was the fewest targets he's seen all year. In that game when, we still talked about fading him on FanDuel, for instance, because he needed the touchdown. He still got there. The box scored, though, even with Stafford's outing, with 6 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown. We've also seen a slight regression, or maybe it's actually just a balance in their play calling inside the red zone recently, ranking top 3 in pass play rate inside the 20 through week 14. And then they've actually been below 50% in their last 3 games as they've leaned on the run slightly more inside the 20. But San Francisco also, lots of these moving pieces in week 18. San Francisco has moved 5 key players in their secondary to the COVID list so far because they're experiencing a cluster breakout, in particular on defense. So even with Stafford, playing somewhat poor, he got over 300 yards last week. And in this slate where we're really just trying to look for options to counteract or leverage off of Josh Allen, since that's where we know the entire field's going. It actually is a pretty good matchup for Stafford and a much better one for Cooper Kupp, even though we could talk about the game theory pricing option again.
All right, Rich, you want to take a stand? Is Cooper Kupp going to break the all-time record?
No. Maybe the receptions, yardage, probably a tough task. He's only gotten there in 1 game this season. For as good as he's been, he's just been real steady. He hasn't had any bad weeks. That's how he's gotten there. But he's hit the reception total just once. But receptions, you can kind of fudge those. You can give him some quick hitters and some things like that. The yardage a little more tougher to manufacture. Maybe
he hasn't hit 136 more than 1 time all year. Really?
Yeah, he's gone over it once, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Was it that like 191, 190 game he had? Did he have something like that?
I don't remember, but he's only gotten the catches once, and if he got the yardage maybe twice at the most, but he's not gotten there very. Yeah, he's only gotten over 136 twice. He's gotten to 136 on the dot 3 times, and his season high is 163 against the Colts. So yeah, he's a guy still too. He needs a lot to get there, even though if we're getting some downfield targets. But he's fine. Listen, we know what we're gonna get out of Cooper Kupp. Definitely keep playing him. It's when you talk about all the guys going on COVID, and now we're at that time of the year where you were almost better if you were a team that's already gone through an outbreak or stuff. Because we're seeing the Bengals too. So if you look at some of the teams that have been the lightest guys go on COVID this year, 49ers up until this week had 4 total guys go on the COVID list. So that just means it's a time bomb waiting, right? And we're starting to kind of see it. The Bengals are another team. They've been just tremendously fortunate all year. And now to start the week, Joe Mixon goes on the COVID list. And, so entering the playoffs, these teams that have already kind of gone through things where guys can't even get tested in the 90-day window maybe even have a slight advantage a little bit, but just have something to stick in the pin for some of these teams that haven't really kind of dealt with it. The 49ers aren't in the playoffs yet, so we can't even really count that because they still, if they can lose and still get into if the Saints lose, but again, that's backing the Falcons organization that we talked about earlier, that has beaten nobody this year. But, all the receivers are in play, though. Odell Beckham still hasn't gotten the yardage, but he keeps getting into the end zone. He keeps making big plays for the team as well. Not even the touchdown he had last week. The fourth down catch he had was absolutely ridiculous catch and body control by him. So he's in play here. 49ers allowing 8.3 yards per target already. The way to beat them is with wide receiver play. They're 19th in touchdown rate allowed to opposing wide receivers. So you're starting to remove a bunch of pieces that are already starting from that. And we're going to get Josh Norman on the field a bunch. You can play all those guys. Stafford's just got to play better in the early part of the games. I mean, his first half splits are absolutely dreadful. He's been fine in the second half of these games. Just kind of got to get it going here, though, early in the games and not kind of put themselves in a hole. When they don't turn the ball over, they're fine. He has 6 games this year where he doesn't have an interception. And in all 6 games, he's been a top 9 fantasy scorer. And in the 10 other games, he's finished as a QB 15 or lower in 7 of those games. And he just has 3 QB1 finishes with 1 game inside the top 10.
I don't know the PFF scores everybody these days, the defensive players for sure. I'm assuming in 2022, like 34-year-old Josh Norman, he's a liability. Is that why you referenced him? He's bad now, right?
Yeah, he's been bad. He's been bad for a couple of years. I think Derrick Henry finally finished him off last year when he put him into the core of the universe.
That was pretty sweet. Was that the one where the famous scene where what the lineman said, like, you're sitting out there with my wife in the suites? Or you know what I'm talking about? Taylon? Am I thinking of something else?
Taylor Lewan?
Yeah, Taylor Lewan, where there's like a famous, like, mic'd up clip, and he's talking to like somebody in the bench. I don't know, maybe it was Henry, I don't recall what it was, but he's like, yeah, you knocked that guy into the stands. He's sitting there with my wife in the suites right now. Maybe it's different, could have been a different scenario, but same sort of concept.
Good line.
Yeah, it was very good. It's funny. I love the mic'd up stuff for sure. John, what are your thoughts as far as Sonny Michel? You can feel free to chime in as far as, Beckham and Jefferson. Of course, Jefferson can always get loose with that 70-yarder. It's in play in tournaments. They're talking about Akers being on track to at least like suit up and play to some degree. Who knows? Probably not much. The running back situation by the Rams, and then feel free to jump over to the 49ers, where Mitchell did not practice today, but it's a Wednesday, so probably not a panic time. I assume that's probably a maintenance thing. You tell me otherwise.
So for the Rams, we knew Van Jefferson, we talked about it last week, was more of a touchdown or bust option, but still in good matchups, he can easily get 1 or 2 touchdowns. Having said that, last week, just in playing a season low 31 snaps, we really only have coach speak now to go off of what happened. And Sean McVay said that it was just the flow of the game, quote unquote. He's still a really important part of the offense. Nothing has changed, and you can expect to see a lot of Van this week, whatever that means. But, and we also talked about this last week, that we liked Beckham still because they had shown they will give him concerted touches inside the 10. Like, they will actually scheme him up for fade routes. And that's the 3rd time this past week that they've done that now in the last 4 games, where they do just try to make sure they get a couple plays in where they isolate him one-on-one and just lob him the ball and hope for the best. So still, like, many ways, whether it be deep or shallow, that Beckham can get touchdowns here. For Sony Michel, though, it's literally just the Sony Michel show. Now, in his last 5 games, averaging 23 touches. This past week, 100% of the team's backfield touches. And then recently has been used, encouragingly, similarly to Darrell Henderson, and totaling 9 targets the last 2 weeks. So that's kind of what we were really going for. Last week, I thought it was good to leverage. So initially, I went to Sunday morning going to leverage Sony Michel against the Rams passing attack, knowing that everyone was going to go the passing attack and hoping for the touchdown echo to Michel. But then, we look up Sunday morning and Michel's sitting around like 30% projected. And it's like, well, this isn't even like clever. He's no longer a good tournament option. So I ended up getting off of him. But the fact now that he can also catch those targets, like, he's also an option if you want to throw in with Matthew Stafford, if you like this offense as a whole. And for the 49ers, we are in a wait and see now. If Elijah Mitchell's healthy, you already know, just like last week, you already know he's going to get every single carry. Jeff Wilson won't be in an option whatsoever. They continue doing this time and time again, where they will only give all the carries to Elijah Mitchell if he's healthy. And then under center, Jimmy Garoppolo got in a limited practice this game. Not sure I don't have a good read on it, honestly. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. So maybe Rich can talk about, like, if we just get 100% Lance, this matchup overall.
Rich?
Well, he said that the thumb didn't feel good either after practice today, so we'll have to wait and see. what happens there. It's interesting because Garoppolo is kind of a Rams killer. And it's kind of the way he's played, because the way he plays structurally makes sense why he's good against the Rams. I mean, the Rams don't give up anything downfield. They don't give up anything on the outside. It's typically, more over the middle of the field stuff. And that's where that's where he lives. That's what all Garoppolo has done. He doesn't live on the boundaries on whatsoever. They've won 5 in a row with Garoppolo as the starter against them. And he's thrown for 8.1 yards per pass attempt, with 8 touchdowns. The past 2 times these teams have played, he's thrown for 9.9 yards per attempt and 11.7 yards per pass attempt. It's pretty interesting that he's kind of been like this catalyst in these games, but it makes sense when you kind of think about where to beat the Rams. But that also just ties into the weaponry that he has and where those guys win. You look at Deebo Samuel's track record against the Rams, and it's the same thing. Like it's so I don't really want to give Garoppolo a ton of credit. I want to give the weaponry a lot more credit, but Samuel has dusted them up, 3 straight times. Earlier in the season, 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. The previous matchup, 133 touchdowns, 11 catches. The time before that, 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. George Kittle's game log against the Rams is just like an absolute smash. Just go down the list of all that. You can just it's way better than T.Y. Hilton versus Houston. If you're someone of that kind of lore, he's absolutely just eviscerated the Rams. So yeah, maybe you look at those 2 guys and Kyle Shanahan's been just really good at scheming the ball and targets to Kittle and touches to Deebo Samuel in this particular matchup. And they both got off earlier in the season when these 2 teams played on Monday night.
One lineup, you're picking Samuel or you're picking Kittle?
Oh, Kittle for sure. He's just so much cheaper, man. Deebo's one of those guys, and he keeps getting there and sticking me, at his price tag and the usage he gets, I'm just there's no way I'm going to pay this much for him. And then he scores a touchdown every week.
The only reason to do it last week was because, the matchup helps, especially when we're talking about basically a running back wide receiver against the Texans. But also, that's the way that no one was playing Lance. Everyone was going to play Lance, but no one was dragging along Deebo or one of the receivers with him, even Ayuk. And we knew he was volatile. If Lance was unleashed a little more to play Ayuk or someone with him. So that's the only reason I played Deebo in some lineups last week, just knowing that no one else was going to.
And him and Kupp scored and basically didn't even really get there though. That's what's crazy. We're there again with Kupp. I mean, Kupp's 10K on FanDuel, so he did bump down too. And he's 9.7
down to 10K.
DraftKings.
He was 10.5.
Yeah, they gave him a little price down. It's just he's got to get in the box on FanDuel for sure at 10K. DraftKings, you have a little more leeway, because you've got bonuses and there's full receptions scoring there. But yeah, it's been tough, man, to click Deebo though.
It is a little easier kind of this week. There are some expensive options we'll talk about, but we don't have retired receivers. We don't have really chalk running backs that everyone's jumping around this week. So it's a slightly easier to build this week.
Looks like Sonny Michel's a better play on DK as opposed to FanDuel this week. He's 6K on DK, 7.7 or so on FanDuel. If you're considering that route, do we, like you said, if Mitchell is a go, he's basically the entire backfield, Rich. How much in play is he for tournaments, or you prefer the Kittle or Deebo types?
Yeah, I prefer the passing side, especially with them being dogs. He did have a ton of touches when these teams played earlier, and we know he's going to get touches, but you never know what kind of receiving upside he has. And the Rams have just been so good against the run, and he didn't do anything in that first matchup except for just stack touches due to game script in that first matchup. So, he's 8K on FanDuel. I think he's like the 6th highest priced running back on FanDuel. And then on DK, you have a little more leeway because, he's not priced up as much due to the lack of full season receiving. I think he's the same price as Sony on DK. Yeah, they're both 6K. So that's a little more palatable. I think it's tough to pay the 8K on FanDuel just because you need maybe multiple touchdowns at that price tag.
What do we think of Lance if Lance goes? And who knows, the internet doctors you were talking about last week, how they were saying he's going to be Garoppolo, that is going to be out for several games, most likely. And it doesn't sound too promising here on a Wednesday night. It's probably more of a DK question, 5.5K on DK. We know he has wheels, 7K on FanDuel. On the turf in a dome, you got to love that for that kind of archetype. Rich, Trey Lance, is he in play for you?
Sure. Yeah. Anybody that runs around at 7K, I'll take a look at. He's going to be fun. It's going to be curious to see when we close the week where him versus Taysom Hill will be because Taysom looks pretty good this week too.
Yeah, Taysom Hill's got a really good matchup, fully motivated, chance to make the playoffs, and he's not afraid to run the ball either or pile. John, you got anything else in this game that's worth noting, or shall we move on?
I think that's good.
All right, game 2, Chicago and the Bears versus Minnesota. 44.5 is the two teams that are playing for absolutely nothing. Both teams are eliminated. I presume we're going to get Cousins back this week. Is that official? Is that just assume we're getting Cousins back? Is that that's the assumption?
Think we're giving him back potentially for a goodbye with Mike Zimmer. I don't know. I guess we'll find that out.
Zimmer said he's starting.
Okay.
There you go. All right. Well, Rich, I'll throw it to you. And that's the thing with motivation these days. I assume, like, I heard Dalvin Cook talk about having motivation, like he wants to play this game hard for his father who passed this year. And, all these guys, some of them probably planning golf trips, whatever they're up to, or vacations, well-deserved. Enjoy yourself, have a good time, it's been a long season. Some would say, John, the longest season. I'm told it's potentially the longest season. Some would say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the athlete mindset though. Like, you have to create doubt, even if there is no doubt, or like are no doubters. You have to create it in order to get hyped up. Even for Baker, honestly, like, for as bad as he's played and he's been injured, like, the dude has played tough. Honestly, he's been terrible. Don't get me wrong, but like, he's still like taking hits along the sideline and to that injured shoulder rather than going down. So yeah, I mean, they're still out there playing. Also, for like motivation for me, as I'm trying to fight off all the doubters. If you look at the slate, it was hard to pick a third game, honestly. Like, this is actually like two teams that are competitive, I guess. But like everyone else, like, we can't talk about the Colts and Jaguars because we'd just be masturbating over Jonathan Taylor the whole time. We can't talk about like other games like Bills and Jets because we wouldn't talk about the Jets at all. Maybe Braxton Berrios. So it's just like, I needed two teams we could actually analyze both sides, and here we are, working pro.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, analyze the Bears, play Montgomery. Anything else? Like, what else?
Justin Fields is playing.
Yeah. Okay. Momentum in the next season. That's the thing people try to manufacture. I don't know if that's real or not. But all right, Rich, talk about Justin Fields. Hey, you know what? Running quarterback in a dome. Okay, that's something. He can move.
Yeah, you made the argument with the guy before. We've got Taysom Hill, we got Lance, we got Fields, we've got all running quarterbacks in domes. Listen, man, it's a smorgasbord for you. Lay it out. I mean, and Fields has been getting there. I mean, his past 5 games played, he's been in the top 10 in scoring in 4 of those 5 games, and 1 he left the game early. But he wasn't going to get there against the Ravens the way that first half was going. But I mean, him coming with the ankle injury, you just have to question how much like there's a hindrance.
Yeah.
There. Like, is he 100%? Is he able to get there? So probably tournament only. But he was a guy over his past 7 starts averaging 6 rushing points per game. When these two teams played on Monday night 2 weeks ago, he actually was a effective passer. This is the other thing too. We didn't talk about Stafford, is that the last 2 matchups he didn't play good in were ones we would have thought everyone's played good against these guys. I mean, since the Vikings have lost Everson Griffin and Daniel Hunter, like, their pressure rate is just sunk. They're not getting after the quarterback at all at this point. And Fields was 26 of 39 in that game for 285 yards. It was really good in the second half. But he's still a guy we're going to prop up for his rushing first. So if that ankle's not 100%, we won't know that going in. That definitely throws a little bit of shade on it. But it does give us another intriguing, kind of upside piece on the Chicago side to talk about outside of, Dave Montgomery just getting a ton of touches.
Do you play Fields naked a la carte, or is there somebody you feel comfortable pairing him with?
There's only one guy to play on there. Mooney's really it. I mean, if you're going to play a receiver, another 13 targets last week. Allen Robinson he's got 2 feet out the door in Chicago. So that's really it. Kmet hasn't scored a touchdown yet this year. Got 1 more week if you think you're going to get it, but
oh man, it's probably not going to happen. Was there a thing where the Giants receiver didn't score a touchdown for like 2 months? Is that still holding up?
That's still.
Am I making that up? Is that correct?
I don't think. When's the last time they scored a real touchdown outside of a wide receiver?
I think they had negative 10 passing yards last week.
We are
so amazing.
We're inching towards the type of year that the Chiefs had whenever a receiver didn't score a touchdown all season long.
The Broncos
close to that.
The Broncos haven't had a wide receiver catch a touchdown since week 9. I know that. And that's just sad. It's just a sad state of affairs what happened there. And you saw Melvin Gordon come out today and basically say, like, this team wasted like a talented roster. And that's what happens when you don't have a quarterback.
John, what do you have as far as the Bears?
I think Rich pretty much covered it. Just in the 8.5 carries per game that Fields has averaged in his last 5 full starts. That's kind of why this game is interesting. Also, that I know people looked up and saw Allen Robinson at 3,800 on DraftKings last week, but even then, you could argue that that's too much. It's too expensive for Allen Robinson. So even at like 3K Stone Men, I think that's still probably too expensive for Allen Robinson this year, at least until we find his next home. On the other side of the ball, it's really interesting though, because we never know how players perform off the COVID list, especially with the unvaccinated individuals. So what happens with Kirk Cousins here is interesting. But then also, again, this week is all about beyond the motivation and everything. We can't get lost in the fact that clusters are now building for the COVID list for teams. And the offensive line for the Vikings was struck hard just in Ezra Cleveland and Christian Darrisaw. And so for Kirk Cousins, who, remember, played the Bears 2 weeks ago, and defense did its job. Maybe it was just Kirk Cousins doing his job in prime time, but nonetheless, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns in that miserable primetime game.
Yes.
And then now, no offensive line. It's certainly concerning, but we do know where he's going to go. That's the thing. We talk about limiting these target trees and knowing who produces if they produce. And of course, it's Justin Jefferson. We haven't seen him without Kirk Cousins or with Kirk Cousins and without Adam Thielen for 2 weeks. But remember, he had a 35% target share in his last 6 games from Cousins, and Thielen was only absent for 2 of those. So Justin Jefferson with Justin Fields, there's a pretty easy way to stack this game if you're into it.
Thielen, of course, on IR, out for the season. Is that it? It's Jefferson there, Rich, as far as the Minnesota side. For sure, he's the best upside guy, and you can play yourself some Cook as well. But like Rick John was alluded to, I want at least a legitimately somewhat decent offensive line that is, the thankless big uglies, as they call them. But that could be a problem later on in the week, and we'll see how that goes down. But yeah, the skill position players for Minnesota, what do you have from here, Rich?
Yeah, this is a game when you look at it, this is where you can probably get a lot of your skinny stacks, even if you don't want to, chase Fields coming back and bank on the ankle. There are other mobile quarterbacks like we talked about available if you don't want to play Cousins, whoever likes playing Kirk Cousins. So you can play your skinny Montgomery plus Jefferson, right? That exists in this game. You could do, I don't know if you're going to do Cook and Mooney, but definitely the front one, skinny sounds really good. Jefferson has 11.5 targets per game over his past 8 games. He was over 40% of the team targets in the 2 games Thielen missed. One of them was a game against the Bears. We had 10 targets, only had 47 yards. That's the game, but it was 50% of the yards, like Daigle said, in that game. So that exists. Montgomery is it hasn't been a fun ride with Montgomery, but he keeps getting touchdowns. They're another team, their offensive line has just been so bad. The past 4 weeks, he has 2.9 yards per carry. But he's getting 22 touches per game. He's involved in the pass game. When these teams met a couple weeks ago, again, the same thing, 23 touches. He only had 83 yards, but you'll just take 23 touches, right? And just hope to see what that happens at his price tag. He's still been a little bit underpriced for the volume he's getting. I'd rather play him than both of the guys we talked about in the first game.
What are your general thoughts? Oh, go ahead, John.
No, I'll just say really quick. One, I did not have a successful week in week 17, and I knew I was not going to have a successful week in the first 30 seconds whenever David Montgomery and Braxton Berrios scored a rushing touchdown. I was okay, I'm officially done now for this week. I've lost.
Why do you hate chalk so much?
I've lost to the chalk. No big deal. Especially on a slate where everyone was a good play and everyone just paid down for the same players to pay up. Ridiculous. Whatever the case, they actually were using Braxton Berrios in interesting ways. But also, KJ Osborne, it's, on one hand, we know they use him like Adam Thielen, even this past week, a season high in snaps. But also it's interesting because DraftKings, because at first I was well, if I can get 3,900, 4K KJ Osborne, that's not a bad way to pay down. But then also he's around 5K on DraftKings. There are other players like Marquez Callaway, I think is interesting. Braxton Berrios, that's why these past 2 weeks have been hard to find cheap receivers. DraftKings getting pretty creative with these guys that should be below 4K, but now they're just pricing basically the good guys around 5K outside of Berrios, of course.
I don't know who wants to tackle this one, but it's a kind of a general thought, and it's sort of case by case depending on the team and all that. But a guy like Montgomery, Rich, what is Chicago's incentive to run him in the ground in week 18? I assume he's signed for next year. I'm not really sure, but just assume he is for the sake of the conversation. like, why not push back a little bit? It's been a long season. It's been a bad season, and give like Herbert, I don't know, 25%, just kind of see what you have in a couple guys. Like some teams are probably going to do that and some teams probably aren't. And is that just sort of like, that's the whole idea of being an information slate, trying to compile that information? And yes, coaches lie, but I don't know how to handle that, basically, is what I'm saying. Like, I try to best guess, like, why would they play Montgomery for like 27 touches? Why would they? Besides, like, that's his job.
Because of Matt Nagy.
That's the case by case. That's a good case for
I mean,
Chicago.
It's probably Matt Nagy's last game. I'm sure he wants to win it against a division rival. It might be Mike Zimmer's last game too. So who knows? Maybe it's one of these things too, where both these guys are trying to, push everyone to go hard, or maybe. But I'm with you.
This town match.
I mean, I thought all season, trying to galaxy brain that with the extra week this year, that we would see kind of teams, scale back, maybe not play their backs on a Thursday night game or do something like that. And none of that's happened all year. So it's kind of just guesswork. We've got a lot of that in play this week, and that's what makes week 18. Like I said, it almost feels like a little bit of like that final week of the preseason, right? Who are these guys going to get a half? Are they going to get 3 quarters? Are they going to get a full game? Like, there's all these elements there. Yeah, to me, it would make sense, like, to do what you said, but also, like, we're just trying to guess on that front too. So, I mean, if we're not doing that, like, we have to play some running backs, right? Like,
well, we can play Jonathan Taylor.
Well, we can do that.
He's expensive though, but yeah,
we can't play Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp though.
Salary cap restrictions. John, do you have a thought on that? I want to give you a chance to answer if you have an opinion there.
Cooper Kupp or Jonathan Taylor?
No. Just a thought on, as far as how to handle
like the teams that aren't playing for anything.
Yeah, not really any thoughts. I've been taking it case by case. Do we really have that many though? Like, I think the Bucks are the biggest question because we don't know how much seeding matters for Bruce Arians. But other than that, like, yeah, not many two thoughts.
The next game,
soon they're going to show up and play.
Seattle's just playing out the string. Like, how much Rashad Penny they're going to play? I don't know. I assume the normal amount.
I mean, they declined his 5th year. He's a free agent, so I would imagine they just run him to the ground. They have been so far.
Seattle's one of those teams I feel like I'm not worried about because of the Pete Carroll Russ thing. Like, it could be Russ's final game with the Seahawks. It's like Pete's not. They're not going to quit on Pete either. Like, so, I mean, Seattle, I don't really worry about. Like, I feel like Seattle's going to be. They're going to go all out. Well, in Seattle context, go all out.
Nick Chubb, there's another one for you.
Could be 45 plays. No, the Browns like are a forward-thinking team. Like, so, like, it's easy to say, like, yeah, because Chubb already was reduced on Monday night and has already missed practice with 2 injuries today, and it's only Wednesday, but he was already limited. So, I mean, the Browns are a forward-thinking organization, though. It's easy to say, like, look at everything Stefanski's done, right? Like, and they already shut down Baker. So, I mean, yeah, Chubb would be a guy I'd be legitimately like worried about.
Yes.
Najee Harris is another one I would think. Like, why would you? Like, it's been a long.
No, they can make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Oh, Pittsburgh has it's like a 1% chance.
They're not dead.
6%. 6% chance.
They need some help.
Fair enough.
But yeah,
right.
they need some help, but they're definitely one of the teams that can.
And they're not quitting.
You're right.
Yeah, they're not. They're.
I stand corrected on that one.
Also, Ben's final game. Like, no, they're all playing.
I've seen enough, Ben. That's it. I'm done.
I saw enough Ben in week 1, let alone in week 17.
I get it though. It's a tricky landscape to figure out. But I mean, yeah, like you said, you just gotta take it case by case basis. Try to read the tea leaves. I've been
more worried about just the clusters. I keep saying that word, but like seriously, even like for the Lions, like Amon-Ra St. Brown would again be a good play. I mean, man, how awesome has he been? Just as a volume slot receiver. But like then the Lions, like entire left side of their offensive line is missing as well, and those dudes are awesome, like Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker. So I've just been kind of focusing on those situations, and like if teams do poorly, it could just be because like their true stars are just out this week on the COVID list.
And Swift, by the way, we talked about that last week. And supposedly,
God. I didn't play him, but Godspeed to everyone who did.
Yeah, I was told he was going to get a big workload, and then like it shut down this week, and he didn't get a big workload. So what's he going to do this week? I have no idea. You got a revenge game for Williams, but also you'd presume on the other side, the Packers are probably resting some people. They have nothing to play for. They locked that 1 seed. So again, it's just this big chess match. I was asking like an overarching question in the middle of our game by game stuff, but I think it's kind of relevant as far as the slate.
Yeah.
All right. Featured game number 3, Seattle at Arizona, just kind of gave it away, -6.5 as far as Phoenix. Phoenix. Well, they're in
Ooh.
Phoenix. They used to be called Phoenix, right? 47.5. That is the biggest total on the board, John. Man, I hate that the Seahawks are in like the biggest total on the board, my least favorite team to talk about. But here we are. John, you want to take the Arizona side or the Seattle side? Who do you want to start with?
Both sides honestly could be very good. Let's go ahead and start with the Kyler side. We saw Kyler bounce back, and we talked about him a lot last week, but in particular from a clean pocket, completing 78% of his passes for over 8 yards per attempt and 2 touchdowns when not under duress against the Cowboys. Also keeping up in that rushing juice that I think Rich highlighted when we were previewing the game. 9 carries this past week. So yeah, I mean, Kyler just returned to be back to being just fine. And then for this game, you have the interesting defensive notes as well, because Seahawks are one of those teams that scheme around zone concepts. They actually run the third lowest rate of man coverage in the league. And Christian Kirk not only leads Arizona in targets against zone coverage on the entire year, but also has 21 to Adrian Green's 10 over the last 3 games without DeAndre Hopkins, as we've seen sort of the target tree shake itself out without Hopkins since week 14. Also, Kirk just 3 fewer targets than Ertz as a whole, with the more ceiling, with the more upside than Ertz as well in that stretch. So yeah, if we get some juice, as we saw in Seattle, the Russ FU bounce back game, even getting in on the ground as well for a season high in carries, like this game could have some sneaky juice in it.
What do you have for me, Rich, as far as this side? By the way, I always want to tilt about last week. I thought I was being so slick, going well over the field as far as Chase Edmonds, like, oh yeah, late information. Connor's going to be out. Arizona, like they're kind of like locked in their spot essentially. And then Edmonds is just a massive, massive flop. And here we are again. Arizona, they are locked into their spot, correct? I believe they're locked in their spot. Oh no, they can fluctuate, but they're going to be making the playoffs. Yeah, they won 23% chance of making the.
They have a chance at the number 2 seed, and that matters because home field advantage or home field in the first round. So they'll be playing to win. They're playing to win.
Yeah, both the Cardinals and Rams that division's still up for grabs. So
yeah, according to 538, the Rams have a 77% chance to win the division. The Cardinals 23%. So
yeah, they need the Rams to lose, but the Rams also have to win, and the Rams are playing a team that they've lost to 5 times in a row.
And the NFC West teams are playing in the afternoon, so there's
you can't tell me McVay is tired of hearing about that shit though. Like McVay wants to hang one on Shanahan for sure. That's all he's heard about all week is probably how many times that they've lost in a row to the 49ers.
Attack this game, Rich. Whatever side you want to come from, go for it.
Yeah, like a lot of the pieces in this game. I mean, Russ it's been pretty easy to diagnose the games he's going to be good in since he came back. He's picked on a lot of cupcakes, but that's how Arizona's been trending. I mean, they've now allowed 4 consecutive top 10 scoring weeks to Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, and Dak Prescott. So there's still a window here for Russ to kind of run back a little bit of what he did last week. I don't expect him to be as efficient as he was against the Lions defense, but there's still some opportunity for him. He's still pretty cheap. This would be a spot where I'd say too, like when you look at Rashad Penny, his usage is fine. You can get attached to that, but it's one thing when you're just stacking a lot of production and going nuts on the Lions, the Bears, and the Texans. Remember, he was not really good in that Tuesday night game that they played against the Rams, actually a legitimate defense. The Cardinals can be run on, but they have also allowed the fewest touchdowns to opposing running backs in the NFL. So that could equal a little bit more like a signal to just the passing game, not really get on Penny. I was surprised Penny was sub 10% at both sites last week. I was pretty floored by that. Especially against the Lions. It was like an obvious spot like for him. And I was just really surprised that he was, maybe it was because that people went to Edmonds, like you said, but I was really surprised.
Yeah. I had a good bit. I had some, but I certainly probably shuffled some of my pennies to Edmonds
because we got that Edmonds news 15 minutes to kick off. And so I faded him knowing that that's when humanity is most looking to tinker with their lineups. When you get news in that 15 to 10 minute window, it's game over. That player is going to be heavily rostered because everyone's just looking for ways to pivot, even if they have the nuts. They don't care. And so I thought it was best to just fade him knowing everyone was going to go to him.
It was crazy though, but I had a Penny Chase team actually get all my money back on the slate. But I am saying that this is a spot to probably not chase Penny's hot games, because when you look at the games, like they're obvious smash spots, and he gets credit for absolutely going above and beyond in those games. He didn't just barely get there. He's been hot, just absolutely smashing. but this would be a spot I would lean towards the Seattle passing game more so than trying to run Penny back.
The question for the 18th time this season, well, we haven't asked it every single week, but Lockett or Metcalf?
I mean, I'm pro Lockett, but we'll know the first target of the game, right? So you just know right when the game starts, you know exactly what kind of game it's going to be for which guy.
That's why apparently the secret is just to play Russ, Lockett, Metcalf, and Penny. That way you don't have to pick and win $1 million. Yeah, easy game.
And I'm on Raw. Listen, man, small field, you onslaught games, baby. That's what happens. I actually hate that I wasn't on the full against the Lions on the onslaught, because all those guys were popular plays in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we saw Metcalf get in the box 3 times last week. He did have a limited practice on Wednesday. I mean, I assume again that's just maintenance stuff, but like stay tuned and everything. And
all
kind
season.
Of stuff. Yeah, nothing to freak out about. Wednesday is kind of the standard day. John, what else do you have here?
We're waiting on Chase Edmonds and James Conner. It was reversed today, and that Chase Edmonds did not practice. It's still early in the week, but Chase Edmonds did not practice. James Conner was limited. So we'll see how all that shakes out. You know, James Conner depended on touchdowns in the past, but again, we also saw him used heavily in the passing game as Chase Edmonds, basically, whenever Edmonds was out. So you know the pivots to do. Edmonds also using the passing game and Conner's out. So we know exactly where to go. And then, you know, Zach Ertz, 3 more targets than Christian Kirk the last 3 weeks, but you really can't play him on FanDuel since, you know, he's averaged 5 yards per target, 8 yards per catch on a site. You need ceiling plays and touchdowns at the onesie position. Also, Antoine Wesley, he has 3 touchdowns on 9 catches the last 3 weeks without Andre Hopkins. And his end zone targets. He leads the team. He's doubled up the next closest receiver, AJ Green, in that span. So there is a reason he's consistently scoring those touchdowns, but still, like, you know what you're chasing, you know, the volatility you're getting into. So really, I just kind of think the plays we talked about are the ones to stick around in this game.
Well, Ertz did have all season highs the first time they played, catches, yards, and touchdowns. When he played at Colt McCoy in this matchup earlier, a couple weeks ago, they actually played. I mean, and his target share goes back to pre-Hopkins injury the second time. Like it goes 6 games deep. Like if you look at his target share in the games where Hopkins missed that first run and the second run, he's been the guy that's gotten the bump. Everyone else has kind of stayed the same. Kirk's gone up a little bit, but it's Ertz is the guy that has the clear, like, significant target splits.
I did a quick Google search. The Steelers, in order to get in the playoffs, they have to beat the Ravens. Okay, that's doable. And they need the Jaguars to beat the Colts.
A lot of teams are riding on that Jaguars dub this week.
Also, the Raiders and Chargers can't tie.
All of those teams have probably seen Carson Wentz play the last month, so they are not worried. They're like, yeah, sure, an upset could happen. They could have maybe seen the Jaguars play the last month too and be like, well, maybe it won't work out.
Well, anyone that's watched Trevor Lawrence play, it's been rough, man.
You know, is it incomplete? What's the grade on Lawrence? Because I was told, I don't watch a lot of college football, but I was told this guy is one of the best quarterback prospects the last 15, 20 years or so. And like, that's not what I've seen. You know, I'm not a scout or whatever. I'm just an armchair guy watching the, football on the couch. But Rich, are we putting a grade on it, or is it kind of unfair? It's just kind of incomplete, but we'll see.
I think it's completely unfair. I mean, he looks like Blaine Gabbert, man, right now. Now, the thing about Lawrence is that there was always like Chase and Pitts in this class were like legit, like guys like in all of my prospect models, which go back to 2000, were like literally like 95 percentile and above. Like Pitts was literally a 99th percentile, like tight end prospect. Lawrence, despite the public opinion, he wasn't even the top. He was my 4th objective in my model. I ranked him higher than that because he's going to go first pick, and following some of his all the other real quarterback scouts that I don't know anything about. He actually just grades out as like an all right quarterback prospect to me. Like I was talking to Denny Carter about this in a thread that we have, non-humble brag, but his similar prospect grades for me were first round quarterbacks were Teddy Bridgewater and Jared Goff as objective prospects coming out. And not just, a lot of people, when you hear those names, you'll think of the result. Those guys were fine prospects. They were drafted there for a reason, but he was never a guy that objectively just like popped and stood out at like this is like immense objective, like deity as a quarterback. Like he didn't look like Andrew Luck, and some other guys, but some of those guys don't hit either. Like when you think of like a Marcus Mariota, or like an
Yeah.
RG3 either. But he was never a guy that like stood out to like the Chase and like Pitts level as like pantheon of like prospects. So if he were to fail and continue to fail, I mean, I kind of really wouldn't even blink, because I think he was put on a pedestal that wasn't really earned objectively.
Yeah, I was told Chase was only good in college because he can catch a college football. That was my understanding.
Well, he said that. To be fair, that's his own quote. So like, he's the one that did
Fair
the
enough.
striped ball quote, but he caught plenty of footballs. Definitely very good.
Yeah. But if you have anything else here, John, as far as thoughts on that, by all means share it. But anything else as far as the Seattle Arizona game that you think is worth featuring, worth talking about, worth pointing out?
No, I think Rich hit on Rashad Penny, the only other option here, pretty well. For Trevor Lawrence, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this offseason, because there's still time left. We need someone who can actually develop him as their next coach. That's why I think maybe Byron Leftwich and Leftwich trying to drag Chris Godwin along with him is a really interesting prospect. But yeah, we'll see how all that shakes out. Hopefully you get someone, maybe even Kellen Moore, though, who knows how to develop young quarterbacks and actually builds good culture.
It feels like both those guys are in line for a head coaching job. And I didn't realize Godwin was that's an interesting idea. I like that just on paper. I'm not sure if that's been floated out there or not, but
even though it'll be interesting to watch where he goes as an unrestricted free agent, Brady is going to lobby for Godwin to come back. And of course, Brady makes the decisions there. So I'm sure they'll get something done anyways.
I mean, what could go wrong signing a long-term contract with the 47-year-old quarterback?
We need all these guys. We gotta settle strap the seatbelt in though. We need Lawrence to be good. We need Zach Wilson to be good. We need Justin Fields to be good, because like those guys are starting next year. It's not like it's a question coming into next year. Like those are those team starting quarterbacks. So like straddle in, because we need there's a lot of pieces attached to those teams that we want to be good, and they're going to need those quarterbacks to be functional.
On one hand, yes. On the other hand, at least we have Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes, Lamar, and Allen in the same conference for the next 15 years. So, at least
Tyler,
the AFC's covered. We're going to need some help with the NFC, but the AFC, we're covered there at least.
It's wild. There's 8 billion people on the planet. We can't, the 30th best player in the world of throwing footballs is like Baker Mayfield. How is that possible?
That's what makes the Baker conversation so interesting. It's already hard enough if you have not league average quarterback. Offense is hard enough if you have a league average quarterback, because you have to get everything right. There's just less room to make mistakes. Whereas guys like Mahomes, Herbert, Burrow, the guys that GM should be trading up to get, even though that's when the clock starts, that's when their jobs then go on the line, is when you make big decisions like that. You should be going up to get those guys, because they can help out when mistakes are made around them, because they're so good. And at the same time, though, it's not even a question about if Baker's league average or not. It's the fact that you kind of have no choice but to try and do better, because Baker then has to go against all those guys I just listed for the next 15 years. And that is not good enough. You can't consistently try and get by Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Herbert, Burrow every single year for the rest of your life. It's just not going to happen with Baker. So I think that's what makes really the conference discussion more interesting than the overall micro analysis of this quarterback with this team.
Man, I go on that rant all the time. NBA hell, the worst thing to be is the number 7, number 8 seed. You're not good enough to do anything in the playoffs, but you're not terrible enough, or you can't get a good draft pick. The worst thing to have is the 20th best quarterback. I want the worst quarterback. Give me the worst quarterback, so I get rid of him and replace him. I have an urgency for that, or a top 5 guy. But all right, we shall move on. That is our 3 games. We're going to run it back and talk about our favorite plays in each position. Before we do that, we want to talk about our sponsor, Jock Market. Do appreciate Jock Market sponsoring the show throughout the entire year. And in the playoffs as well, too. Stop throwing your money away. It's time to check out Jock Market. Now, that is the app where daily fantasy becomes a stock exchange. You buy and you sell shares of players in real time for real money. Download now. 100% deposit match up to $50. Just use the promo code GRINDERS, GRINDERS. Get this. If you do not turn a profit in your very first week, Jock Market, they're going to cover your losses in your first event. Download Jock Market in the App Store or the Play Store, and check out jockmarket.com. That's JOCKMKT.com. Use again the promo code GRINDERS, 100% deposit match up to $50 on your first deposit. All right, John, quarterbacks. We kind of alluded to them already. Taysom Hill in a dome. A lot of domes this week. The first 3 games we talked about, another dome here as far as Atlanta. Nice to get that this time of year. Good matchup, especially for a running quarterback here. Taysom Hill, we got Josh Allen against the Jets, and they're motivated. The Bills, they want to win. They probably will. Probably going to score a pile of touchdowns. Yeah, that's a good starting point. Do you like those guys? Who do you like at quarterback?
Yeah, everyone knows Josh Allen's a good play against the Jets, which is why like the slate pretty much starts around him. I imagine he'll be the highest roster quarterback this week and no complaints at all. And so that's what makes this one really interesting, in particular at the quarterback position, because all the guys we've mentioned, Justin Fields, Taysom Hill, not Trey Lance, not only in domes, but also rushing upside. So now we're getting like really sneaky here and saying, okay, well, maybe we can match Josh Allen, honestly, with players like that. And we're also saving like 2K on a site like DraftKings where those rushing yards and bonuses matter. So it's really interesting slate to start with. The one other person I'd pay up besides like Stafford, who we already talked about, and Kyler. I think Tom Brady, again, I'm still following tea leaves here, but I would imagine he'll come in severely under rostered. The Bucs have the home playoff game locked up, but it's still unclear how much like the seeding and the jostling, how much of a tough guy Bruce Arians is, like the Cowboys usually are, and still play their guys in meaningless games. And, if they do go out and still try to sync this offense up without Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin, like the stacking options are still right there for you, whether it be Mike Evans, Rob Gronkowski, who we talked about last week and was in most like winning tournament lineups, and Cyril Grayson, like the cheap paydown option who is still collecting targets here in place of Antonio Brown and Chris Godwin. So I'll be watching like Tom Brady news because I think he's a pretty sneaky pay up option as well.
You mentioned Grayson. Do you think he's the best amongst that like Tyler Johnson, Perriman, Scotty Miller world? Is he like the most appealing for you right now on a Wednesday?
Scotty Miller is still a pop shot guy. He's still just coming on as a rotational receiver. They're not really using him. Also, he's been injured like all year long. So he's still like somewhat limited and coming back. And then Tyler Johnson just isn't earning targets. That's the thing. You still have to earn targets. And the fact that Grayson is and Tyler Johnson is not, like, makes it quite easy, even though he did have 6 this past week, but still makes it quite easy to get away from him. So that's who I'd be paying down if I go with that stack. Yes.
Yeah, all right, Rich. Have you read the tea leaves? They are what at least it says they opened as a 16-point favorite at home versus Carolina. Now they're an 8-point favorite. Of course, they've lost some of their skill position players there, Tampa. Do you think Brady plays the entire game? I think they're locked into at least a first round bye, and they can move up a little bit as far as seeding, but it's not very likely, is my understanding. How fragile is Brady? They've already lost several pieces, obviously, coming down the stretch.
Yeah, they need the Rams to lose. Which could happen. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's tough because these teams played a couple weeks ago too. The one thing that Carolina has actually been good at all year is playing defense. I mean, and Brady, without all of his weapons a couple weeks ago, really struggled in that game. He didn't even play the fourth quarter because it was still 32-6 because the Panthers are that dreadful on offense. I mean, it was 32-6 and Brady was 18 of 30 with 232 yards and a touchdown in that game. Wasn't even good on any level remotely. And the Panthers still had no fighting chance at all. So I think that's what you're just worried about, is just like, but then as a byproduct, when we say things like that, it's like, well, that means they scored points, right? To get there. So I mean, if they're going to score points,
maybe on Bill.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too, is they don't have any running backs. Although Keyshawn Vaughn did practice in full today, so it looks like at least he'll be up. Bruce Arians talked about Gio Bernard potentially being able to play. That's all stuff you'll just have to wait till later in the week to kind of get clarity on. Mike Evans is one of those kind of incentive guys. I think if you were going to play anyone with Brady, you'd want to look at Evans just because, well, a couple reasons. One, he's another one of those guys going for the streak of keeping his 1,000-yard seasons going. So he needs 54 yards for that. Also, he's by de facto going to get targets now. Like Mike Evans this year, he's only had a 20% target share in 4 games this season. And in those games, he's had 5 for 75 and 2 touchdowns, 7 for 75, 7 for 76 and 3 touchdowns, and 6 for 73 and a touchdown. So he's going to be a 20+% target share guy the rest of the season now, because Godwin's not coming back and AB is not coming back. And Carolina has been awesome against tight ends all season. So, Gronk couldn't get there a couple weeks ago. He just had the 2 targets. He's another guy that has a bunch of incentives in play too. He needs 7 catches, 85 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He gets $500K for each of those. 3 touchdowns seems pretty lofty, but 7 for 85 seems reachable. But like I said, tougher matchup for him. He only had 1 catch when these teams played a couple weeks ago. Bucs are a little bit tricky because they're just so banged up and injured. And defensively, we saw their injuries kind of catch up to them. I mean, The Jets looked good, legitimately fine against them. And with no Levante David, Shaquille Barrett's been hurt. I don't expect the Carolina Panthers to do anything in this game still, but yeah, the Bucks. I mean, this is what happens though. It's regression. They were the healthiest team in the NFL last year, and not so lucky. Good closing the season.
Anybody else want to add to the conversation as far as quarterbacks? The Titans, if they got to win to clinch that number 1 seed, get themselves a bye, and another quarterback in a dome, right, in Houston this week. Tannehill, not a fun roster, but he's just somebody that threw out there. I suppose he's got a ready-made pairing in AJ Brown. I'm just looking for guys. Allen's going to get played so much.
Yeah. We covered Josh Allen, Taysom Hill. The one thing with Josh Allen is just watch the weather now. I mean, the Bills are going to regret not having a dome at some point here in this playoff run. Josh Allen's now played 3 games in kind of sketchy weather, and he's been awful in all of them. Last week he got there with the 2 rushing touchdowns, but 11 for 26 with 3 interceptions against the Falcons. Then we saw earlier in the season, they played obviously the Patriots game and the dumbass wind game that we saw. That was bad. And then against the Colts in the bad weather game where Jonathan Taylor just ran wild, he was legitimately bad in that game too. So Josh Allen, man, I know they drafted him to cut through those fierce Buffalo, wins, but we want the Bills. The Bills offense is meant to be played in optimal conditions, the way they play.
Yeah.
They don't have a power run game. Josh Allen is their power run game. And they want to throw the ball a ton. So I don't know what the weather looks like in Buffalo. I didn't look ahead, but
yeah. And those 3 turnovers were not flukes. Josh Allen was forcing those balls because he was frustrated, he wasn't making plays downfield.
But yeah, I mean, it's an objectively great spot for him if the elements are all in play against the Jets.
I like the turnovers. The best play, obviously, 70-yard run or something like that, or a 70-yard pass, a pick 6 on the first play of the game for my quarterback. I love that. Let's chase that.
The Brady game last week.
I do it all day.
I do a team with my son, and we had Brady as our quarterback. And when the Jets were up, I was like, "Oh, Brady's about to throw for 400 yards this game. This is gonna be amazing." In a game where you thought maybe they would just kind of coast. So yeah, it does help a little bit, but you need the other stuff to come with it. But Josh Allen's had 3 pretty sketchy outdoor games in that weird Buffalo weather.
Yeah, I mean, it's backwards thinking, obviously, but the Jets offense can use a push every once in a while to kind of keep that close. All right, John, open up the receivers for us.
Do we go running backs or receivers first?
Oh, you know what? Let's do running backs.
We can go whatever order you want.
No, it's running. It was a perfect game, and then we talked about it. Yeah, running back, go for it.
Running back's really interesting because you could keep making the Devin Singletary argument as leverage off of Josh Allen, even last week. And honestly, if the weather clears up and it's a good spot for Josh Allen still, you can make the argument playing Josh Allen with Devin Singletary if you don't want to go to any other option. So I think Devin Singletary, who has 73 of Buffalo's 86 backfield touches the last 4 games as their clear workhorse, is yet again an awesome play, whether you want to leverage or stack with Josh Allen. Deontay Foreman, 22 carries in 2 of his last 3 games, still led the team in carries in the outlier performance sandwiched in between those 3 games. And then most recently played a season high in snaps against Miami. I spoke of Miami, and that would also lead us if Damian Harris doesn't play, Ramondre Stevenson yet again. We saw Deontay Foreman go wild against Miami. They just no need to throw against, a terrific secondary. So why not just lean on a very talented running back for 20 plus carries again? So Ramondre Stevenson, we're going to have to look for Damian Harris's injury status. And then I'm still watching the Nick Chubb situation. Dearness Johnson started the week on my list, got moved to the COVID list. And we know they just plop their runners in and use them all like Nick Chubb, whoever's healthy. So we have to see about Kareem Hunt. We don't know about his injury. And then also, Rich, do you know if John Kelly is still on the injured practice squad? I think he got moved to. Is he able to get called up, or is that just no way, man? No way in week 18.
I don't know his status right now.
Okay. I was admittedly watching John Kelly as well. So I'm looking to see who gets called up in place of Nick Chubb if he's out.
John, can you say with a reasonable amount of confidence that Foreman has kind of separated himself with that 3-man monster, him and Hilliard McNichols?
Absolutely. Like I already mentioned, the carries, but not only that, McNichols is also being used over Hilliard in the passing game. So Foreman's the guy, Hilliard is the guy who comes in as like to relieve Deontay Foreman. Foreman is very clearly leading the team in carries.
And
It's
if they're
just
ahead
game
by
script.
10 in the
I mean,
fourth quarter, yeah,
It's
he's
just
the
game
hammer.
script. I mean, the one game Foreman bricked was against the 49ers where they were down double-digit points to half.
Sure.
Yeah.
And again, he led the team in carries in that one. And then also, it's the Texans. It's a game we should expect them to have a favorable game script. I still think it's not going to happen. It comes down to LaFleur and Zach Taylor, but I still think Vrabel deserves coach of the year for like just the trash he's taking to 11, 12 wins. Like, I mean, what he's done with this defense, and they're not special. They don't make splash plays, but they just get the job done every week by not breaking ever. To have big wins, huge wins over the Chiefs, the Rams, the Bills. Like, if you look at the Titans' loss, like we can make fun of the Raiders, the Steelers, the Dolphins, but if you look at the Titans' schedule, I mean, they're the Kings. They've killed everyone, and it's amazing when you look at their personnel as well. So I do think Vrabel should be the winner, but he's not going to win it.
I'm pulling up the odds now. I'm curious. All right.
I believe last I checked, because I always make fun of Silva because he has like 16 bets out on coach of the year and none of them are LaFleur or Taylor. So I just keep telling him to keep betting the field. Maybe he'll get one right.
He's got 60%. He's like the guy who covers every number in roulette and he still loses.
Yes. And he gets mad at me because I always make fun of him at dinner for having like 17 tickets out on coach of the year. But no. I think it should be Vrabel. Last I checked, which was last night, Vrabel was like had the third best odds. But again, I genuinely don't think he's even in the conversation according to the people who vote on that. Personally, for me, that would get my vote.
It'll be a crime if Zach Taylor wins coach of the year.
I agree. But he's probably going to win it. He's the favorite right now.
Yeah, I mean, coach of the year has always been one of those awards that's just like, we thought you'd be really shitty and you weren't, so here's coach of the year. That's like how it always is.
FanDuel Sportsbook, LaFleur plus 175, Taylor plus 190, Vrabel plus 270.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Zach Taylor's a donkey. I'm going to tell you.
Who is the worst quarterback that Silva has on his coach of the year ticket? Does he have like a Nagy line around somewhere?
He had to have Matt Rule.
Absolutely, he had Matt Rule early.
A lot of people were on the Matt Rule, and it looked good for a month. And then
Belichick was pretty good until Mac Jones hit that like month-long streak where he wasn't that great. A lot of Mike McCarthy. I know a lot of people though followed the McCarthy train, and the Cowboys offense has now hit this little streak where they're just injured, lots of COVID list players. Also, like I'm still very much worried about like Cowboys futures and McCarthy just because they've made a lot of dumb decisions in final minutes of games this year. And that's as we know when playoff games are decided. Last year, how many teams do we see? McDermott was one of them. The Steelers, the Titans, even Vrabel, like they all kicked themselves out of games because they went for 3 points like on the 40 rather than going for it on 4th and 1. And so like actually trying to win matters once we reach the postseason. So those are like the futures tickets I worry about.
Rich, those some running backs for me on your list. I'm not sure if John mentioned Taylor, like Taylor, Jonathan Taylor. We kind of mentioned him passing a couple times. Like you're supposed to play Jonathan Taylor this week if you can. Like a game that actually matters. They have full incentives. They're playing against the Jaguars. Yeah. Go ahead. What do you have for me, Rich?
Yeah, I think at the top, I mean, the safest guy, if you can't get to Taylor, is probably Alvin Kamara. They've got something to play for. I play against the Falcons here at 100 yards against them. We saw last week, he was involved in the pass game with Taysom Hill as well, 5 for 68. So he's probably the top pay up for RB2 after Taylor. But other than that, this is gonna be a big week where you just have to wait till later in the week, right? Like we're gonna need more information. I remember when Connor got hurt, a lot of people suggested it was a 4-week injury. So it would seem to be like if it would make sense to just keep buying time, but he's been it seems like he's been close to playing each game. And then they just pull the cord at the end on us, or maybe it was just been a nice little ruse. But I mean, yeah, I would be surprised still maybe if he plays, but who knows? And then we kind of just, talked about all the other guys that you kind of would pay for. Just then look for clarity as the week goes on some of these situations. We're going to have some guys that will be like a surprise sit or something. They're just like, we're going to hold him out or something.
FanDuel was pretty proactive on Samaje Perine. He's 6'5" over there. I mean, I thought he might.
And he's another guy too. Like you can't even count him. Well, one, the day was talking about the John Kelly thing. Like one, that game's going to be featuring a bunch of backup quarterbacks, and it's like that is the preseason game.
It's going to be
and
gross.
Like, why wouldn't the Bengals just like, if you're in that situation, why wouldn't you give Chris Evans a bunch of like an extended look?
Yeah, that's kind of the point I was talking about earlier. Like, why not see what you have with a couple guys, and like you said, use it. Well, if you have nothing else to play for, use it as a evaluation for next year.
They're all league average, so maybe it doesn't even matter that their backups are in. I believe the Bengals offensive line also has a big COVID list issue right now as well. And so like we've seen that too whenever we plot backup players into these situations and they just don't perform well. Dearness Johnson is the outlier. That's why I worry about Samaj Piran personally, because we also know, Chris Evans is their third down back, but maybe like there's just nowhere to run anyways for Piran. Also on the other side of the ball, like a big COVID situation for the Browns. And more importantly, better quarterback play in Case Keenum now that he's healthy. And the Bengals defense is like just gone. Like the Browns should be able to pass the ball in this game. Challenge accepted.
DPJ. It comes full circle.
Yeah, full circle, baby. Starting in the season.
It always comes back to DPJ.
Yeah, there's been rumors that Landry won't play, so we'll have to see if that does. But yeah, the Bengals have both Quentin Spain and Trey Hopkins are on the COVID list as well. And
then Trey Hendrickson, Von Bell, and on the COVID list in their secondary.
I mean, rational coaching. Can you guys explain the Giants? Like we talked about their negative 10 passing yards last week. They lost 29-3, yet they insisted on giving Saquon Barkley his biggest load this week as far as 21 carries. This guy, a history of injuries, going nowhere. What was that? Anybody?
But that's a similar thing. It's they had also lost 2 offensive linemen, and they only had 1 healthy receiver entering the game in Kenny Galladay. So they were just like, let's try to end this shit as fast as we can. Like, let's just end the game as fast as we can. Like, we have no business even trying to compete in this game. We have no healthy offensive linemen and no healthy wide receivers. Why drop back to throw a bunch of times? And what's funny is he only dropped back like 15 times and was pressured on like half of them. So like, why keep trying? Why even have him drop back to pass?
Well, there's a lot of players in the NFL that are calling and they're trying to get on that Giants team. That's my understanding.
That was my favorite part. The post-game masterpiece. It's like at the end of Inglourious Bastards, whenever Brad Pitt and BJ Penn look down with their knives and say, I think this might be my masterpiece. That was what Joe Judge did. Just performance art at its finest.
My son is a huge Giants fan, and he just pulls up the transcript after every, like on Sunday night when I watch the Sunday game, and we just have a field day with it. It's just like, he's like, he'll like ask a question. We'll try to answer it like Joe Judge and then read the response. It's so good.
BJ Novak, wasn't BJ Penn like a UFC fighter?
BJ Novak, like thank you. Yeah, BJ Penn was UFC champion for a little bit.
In my head, I'm like, that's different. I know who you're talking about. I know that scene. Amazing
movie. You know who that is, but you don't know who Thanos is?
Yeah, I mean, come on. I stay in my lane. Tarantino.
That same game, though. That same game will be another thing. Like, what does Washington have to do? Like, why would they play Antonio Gibson, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
So if Jaret Patterson plays, I mean, the dude had 17 touches and ran a bunch of pass routes, so he'd be in play too. You just have to wait till later in the week.
And we've seen that. It's kind of been a cheat code, honestly, on DraftKings. I didn't play him, but it doesn't even matter. Like, if you think the guy won't perform well on DraftKings when they're cheap, it literally comes down to, are you using the passing game? Like, are you the pass catching back as well? That's how you get there. We saw Jaret Patterson, it was at 3%, but was in Awesemo's Millie winning lineup, just as in every touch back. And like, honestly, like if you're 4K, if you're around there, you're in every touch back, who cares if you run for like 2 yards per carry? You're going to get the catches. And that's all that matters on DraftKings. Hopefully you get in there for a goal line run. So yeah, Patterson would be on the list as well.
Who cares if I just heard of you 3 days ago? Like I played him. I don't know. Like I never heard of the
dude. He had a ridiculous run in college. He had back-to-back games last year where he had like 800 rushing yards.
I was about to say, go look at his college game logs from his last year, Dean. You will be shocked.
Buffalo.
Buffalo. You will be shocked. Oh. He was like Darrell Henderson from Memphis, but you might have also never seen Darrell Henderson play in Memphis. I don't know. He was Jonathan Taylor, like of Buffalo, of a smaller school. They just used him for 30 carries a game, and he just exploded every single week.
Yeah, he had a game
in Buffalo.
He had a game where he was literally on the like DFS slate too, and had a game with I believe 7 touchdowns last year. He had Dean. He had a 2-game stretch where like it was just like the stupidest thing ever last year, where he just went absolutely nuts. And just like I say. Yeah. Oh, it was 8 touchdowns. So Dean, back-to-back games, 301 yards and 4 touchdowns. And the very next week, 409 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns.
Yep.
Who's
He
covering? It's like who's
And then he
covering him?
And then he showed up to the combine.
Mac action.
Is it
he sho-
Maction?
It was Maction. It's always Maction. And then he showed up to the combine, just like was not an athlete at all. He tested out so poorly.
No, he's at Buffalo.
But he played special teams, and that's how you make a career in the NFL. And so Washington drafted him. They stuck him on special teams, and he earned his role. So good for him.
Yeah, running back,
Good
it
for him,
doesn't
man.
matter. You don't have to be a good athlete to play running back.
No. Let's get
All
that
right,
out
let's
there.
knock out some receivers and tight ends and step aside and get out of here. We've kept people long enough. We've derailed the show plenty, which is fun. I think that's the part that people like secretly. Rich, you want to start with some receivers for us?
Wide receivers. Let's see. We talked about Mike Evans. We talked about Justin Jefferson. Brandon Cook still is good. He's your skinny with Deontay Foreman. His splits with Davis Mills now are pretty night and day with him and Tyrod Taylor. He's actually been with the last 4 games, he's been a top 12, top 13 wide receiver. He's caught 71% of his targets from Davis Mills as opposed to 58% from Tyrod Taylor. Pretty jarring split there. So yeah, keep playing him, and he's your skinny with Deontay Foreman.
Steph Diggs, we talked about those incentives, 6 receptions to earn $1.55 million. You know that Josh Allen's going to be aware of that. Diggs will let him know. 230 receiving yards for that's probably not going to happen for another
same game. Gabe Davis looks pretty good again.
Yep.
Sure. Proud of UCF there. Go Knights. John, what do you have as far as receive? Are we still playing the Sun God, by the way? Rich, that's your guy every single week. The price hiked him up a little bit, but he's getting there every single week. Detroit, another game in a dome this time of year is nice. And that Green Bay defense, who knows what it's going to look like come Sunday. Are you still on Ra? Amon Ra?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Double-digit targets in each of the past 5 games. Like Daigle said, the offensive line's hurt, but that might even help him get more targets. It's a Tim Boyle revenge game. Do we count Tim Boyle revenge game?
Oh, no. He's a very vengeful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk anyone out of the Sun God at this point.
Yeah. He's more vengeful than the bride from Kill Bill. That's my understanding. So it's going to be ugly for sure. Just calling back the old Quentin Tarantino. What do you have for me, John, as far as some receivers? Feel free to add on to that list or throw some new names out there or run it back. If there's anything you want to add on as far as, you like, you dislike, you want to double down.
Now we know Quentin Tarantino also your strength, not Ant-Man.
Correct.
Donovan Peoples-Jones was literally on my list. I'm not kidding. Just because Von Bell, Trey Henderson, Trey Waynes out. So I'll keep chasing those air yards. Don't care. And then we talked about Taysom Hill, but I think dragging Marquez Callaway along, that's like the unique way to get Taysom Hill in this game. 19 targets the last 2 starts with Taysom Hill. Remember, he had that Ian Book game sandwiched in between, but Callaway has quietly emerged as New Orleans' #1 receiver. So if you're looking to pay down and like game theory wise, he's priced 100 more than Braxton Berrios. So I think that's a pretty good option.
All right, John, bring us home. Talk about some tight ends. Pitts, we're not really sure if he's going to play, but if he does, what is it, like 60 some yards or so to break the single season record for rookie tight ends? I think that's what it is. I want to double down and confirm that is correct. But yeah, John, what do you have as far as tight ends?
He still caught that 61-yard catch last week too. That gave him the record, or not a record, but gave him the first tight end to go over 1,000 yards in 60 years. So still reached a significant milestone. We'll see if he gets available because that hamstring strain did seem pretty serious whenever he suffered it. He tried to come back in the 3rd quarter, but was just like limping around, running useless routes on 1 foot. So we'll see what happens there. I think the pay down guy, now we could have people go on COVID list injury report, and thus the cheap guy becomes clear. But right now it looks like John Bates is going to win the award as the minimum guy at $3K to play, since Ricky Seals-Jones looks like he may miss time. So yeah, that's where you go to pay down at. And then we already talked about Zach Ertz if you want to get the floor, and then Gronk's price is still, or no, I'm sorry, not Gronk. Kittle's price is still pretty good as well. We talked about him, and that's kind of my pool this week.
We're not going to mention Komet. We kind of mentioned them in passing as far as other cheapies.
I mean, we did this last week.
happen.
Remember, Komet doesn't score touchdowns. Like, you need a touchdown from outside the 40. That's how Komet scores touchdown, because anytime like they get inside the 20, there's a spidey sense that goes off with Nagy, and Jimmy Graham goes on the field for one of his 7 snaps per game. So that's just the way they run their offense.
Yeah, you got to vindicate that contract.
Rich, Kyle Pitts, 59 receiving yards for a single season rookie tight end record. Mark Andrews, 141 receiving yards for the single season record as far as tight ends. Baltimore does have a really, really minuscule chance of making the playoffs. It probably is tied to that I'm guessing it's tied to the Colts losing to the Jags. I don't know that for certain, but that would make sense to me in my brain. Yeah, there's a couple guys we get through out there.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Andrews, you have to pay for it. They need to win the Ravens. They need losses by the Colts, the Chargers, and the Dolphins to get in.
Good luck.
And I mean, but Mark Andrews has been on such a heater. I mean, he's priced up so high. So you've got to jam. He's a jamming guy, and no one's ever going to jam in a tight end when you're trying to jam in two other guys that have been good all year, Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor. So It's really tough at his price. It was a good ride for Mark Andrews. He had another good game last week too, but at 8.5 and 7.5, there's a lot. There's a lot to go.
Did he finish the season as tight end 1? I feel like in my brain he's probably close to it. Okay,
easy.
Wow. And like most people didn't have that. I assume most people had either Kelsey or Kittle.
No, yeah, he had Waller. I mean, Waller was the second tight end off the board.
Forgot about Waller. Yeah.
He's going to play. He might play Sunday night. So,
come on, he's not going to play, is he?
Yeah,
he returned to practice.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say, okay, I guess he's going to just show up and play. All right, go for it.
Well, he was supposed to be close last week. Rich Hribar was hinting that he was close to playing, and then he got put on the COVID list and couldn't play. So we'll see what happens. See if he's limited or not. But it's an all-out game for the Raiders. Like,
yeah, they got to win. Yeah, that's right. If they win, they're in, right? So okay.
But even if he's limited, like I imagine, like if he can dress and they can even just put him in certain packages, they would do that in this game.
Yeah, on the goal line kind of thing for sure. That does make a lot of sense. I haven't focused on my research. I wasn't focusing on that Sunday night game because this was main slate only. So I didn't realize that. Oh yeah, the Raiders. There's a reason why that game was moved to Sunday night. Yeah. All right. Rich, you got anything else as far as tight ends? Anything else that we should keep an eye on as the week progresses?
Continue just to follow the news, like we said. I mean, we'll hear, I'm sure, of a number of good players that teams just pull the reins back on and say, yeah, this guy was dealing with X injury that we didn't highlight being badly, and we're just going to rest him this week. I'm sure we'll get several of those as the week progresses.
John, tell the people where they can find you in the interwebs, where they can find your updates as far as news breaks. Where are you going to put that kind of stuff this week? Twitter, all that good stuff.
Updates will be on my own DFS show on Friday that comes out after the injury report. So we have a little more news. This is how we wet our chops on the Wednesday night. But Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, NBC Sports Edge YouTube page. Monday night, also to get ahead of this and promote it, I will be doing a first look playoff only for those FFPC playoff leagues that I love playing, where you can only pick one guy per team, and it's giant prize pools at FFPC. So I'll be doing a show with 4for4 Football's Connor Allen and Joe Pano. So watch that Monday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And then also, since I am a connoisseur, just know I'll be paying up for Bryson DeChambeau and paying down for Taylor Gooch at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning.
You're giving golf tips to the people.
Oh baby, we are ready. I quietly play golf like every week behind the scenes. Like I love DFS golf. Love it.
He crushes. That's all. I'm not a big golf guy, but I know he's a big driver, right? Isn't that Bryson's thing?
Yeah, but he's also
like a scientist also.
He's also very easy to hate. Yeah, he's kind of a douche. Having said that, I love him. I am enamored. I watch all his YouTube videos. I read every article that's ever done about him. I think he's amazing, but also, yes, he's a very, very hard person to like.
Is he like a heel wrestler you like?
What's the douche Venn diagram to professional golfers?
that's very
it's a circle, I believe.
No, because heel wrestlers are cool. Heel wrestlers are meant to be villains, and being a villain in wrestling is just easier. It's just more fun. Bryson wants to be a good guy, but he's accidentally a villain, which makes him worse.
Although it's not even a bit. He's not even playing into it. That's just him naturally, basically. So
he's hard to like. He's very hard to like, Dean. Just watch a few videos and you'll understand this guy's kind of cringe. But yeah, I'm obsessed. He's the most polarizing golfer, genuinely, I think, since Tiger Woods. Everything he does is worth watching. It's like Carson Wentz, whether it be good or bad. You got to see it. You got to see it every week just to revel in it.
And what is that FC? That sounds interesting. I'm curious. For real. You can only play one player. Explain that to me real quick if you don't mind. Now I'm interested.
Well, remember, FFPC, right? We talked about it last week.
Yeah, I hear people talking about it. Yeah, you talk about it all the time, but I'm not aware of this one rule. I like the concept of you can only play one player in each team. That's an interesting little wrinkle.
Yep. So all the playoff teams, once we get the teams, you then literally just pick one player. You're only allowed one player, and you have to fill out your lineup. That includes 2 flexes. That includes a kicker and defense. And like if you pick the kicker from the Bucks, let's say you pick Ryan Suckup, you can't pick Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. You're only allowed 1, and you fill out your lineup like that. They allow multiple entries, so you do that. And then last year, maybe this year too, I think it's 250 entry, and oh god, I got to get the prize payout. I don't know the prize payout, but I believe it's like $250 to $500 entries. And and it's like, 50, 100K payout. So it's a lot of fun. I love it.
I might play. That sounds like fun. I like that wrinkle. I like the strategy.
Lots of game theory involved as well. That's why I love it so much.
Do you partake in that as well, Rich? Or are you like relaxing for once?
No, I don't know anything about golf. I know that Anthony Kim, does he still golf? He's wear those dope belt buckles. That's all I really know.
No, he doesn't really
Anthony
show up
Kim.
that much.
I'm not sure.
Doesn't show up that much anymore.
He's just wearing really cool belt buckles. That's the only reason I knew him.
Okay. Hey, fair enough. Rich, tell the people where they can find your content, so they can find you around the interwebs, all that good stuff. It's week 18. If they don't know by now, but like there's one guy who watched this show for the very first time and like, hey, that Rich fellow, he's pretty sharp. I want to see where else we can find him. And you're going to go ahead and tell him.
Yeah, all my stuff is at sharpfootballanalysis.com. All of my stuff will be up with no paywall in the playoffs. I'll be writing up all these games. And you can still find me for 2 more Wednesdays with my guys, Daigle and Dean.
Yeah, we're going to be back. We're extending it. The longest season gets longer. Week 19, week 22 playoff sessions. It's going to be good times for sure. So stay tuned. I'm sure there's going to be massive prize pools. What do you have, John?
If you thought we were good at filling time whenever we had 16 games to talk about, just wait until we have 7 games to see what we fill the time with.
Devin's been trying to get out of here for 35 minutes.
I'll give you my Tarantino power rankings, like a movie by movie. I'm happy to do something.
I'm here. Let's do this. I'd love to hear it.
Join us again next week. Good luck, week 18. Again, information slate. Keep your ear and your nose and all your body parts to the grindstone, and be aware. This stuff is fluid as far as the news, all the way up to kickoff at 1:00. Good luck Sunday. That was Rich Hribar from Sharp Football Analysis. That was John Daigle from NBC Sports, a Good Football Show podcast. I was Dean from RotoGrinders. That was football. We're out of here. Holler.